back. It's the Mindstate Marketing Hour with our most favorite author. His name is Will Leach. Will, how are you doing?
Doing great, Steve. How are you? It's a big week for many sports fans out there.
Why is that? Why are we talking about sports fans and this week on the Mindstate Marketing Hour with Will Leach?
Well, there's this little thing you may have heard of in some time in your life, something called March Madness, and that starts in just a few hours. And because of that, it got me thinking about success and desire for winning and competition. As I was thinking about my brackets, I'm thinking about all my favorite teams that are not likely to go very far in the Final Four March Madness brackets. And so it got me thinking about accomplishing things. And of course, when I think about accomplishment, I think motivational psychology and those people that are hyper success. So hyper success driven. So anyways, I think it's the right time to talk about people who are driven by success and achievement and winning and competition.
There's a lot of that out there, especially in the sports realm. But if there was ever an environment that is the most competitive environment out there, it's business.
Every day is a struggle, buddy. That's right.
You know how many professional athletes stop their career and try to go into business and fail? Mm-hmm. They get their butts handed to them in an environment that's even more hyper competitive, and that's business. No favors there. You need to show up and know your game. So how do you grow your sales with hyper success focused customers?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things that you can do. And I'm going to talk about those things today. They're not in really a major order. You don't have to do all 7, but I do have 7 steps or 7 things you should be thinking about if you are going to really try to engage with somebody that you know, whether they're on your sales team, whether they're an employee, whether these are your customers and you're maybe a consultant out there who is thinking about how do you optimize your customers' chances of success. I'm going to teach you how you can engage with them in a way, talk to them in a way, create marketing in a way that just gets them to feel like, man, you're in it with me. You know how I feel. I want to be a champion and you're there with me.
So tell me, why is it that we all desire the sweet taste of success?
Yeah, there's been studies on this for the better part of 70 years. David McClellan back in the 50s first started kind of really focusing on accomplishment. And it really equates a bit to, or it links to something called goal theory that we talk about here a lot. But there's this thing that we all have these goals. And one of the primary reasons that we go after our goals is to feel successful. Because when you accomplish anything in life, accomplish the smallest of goals, like, hey, getting my kids out the door so that they can make it to school on time, or if it's just eating healthy, anything like that, that little elevation of I did it, it gives you some esteem. It gives you a sense of pride, and positive emotions like pride get us to maintain behaviors again and again. But what's interesting though, is, you think that that's common for everybody. And it is. We all taste, or we desire that honey, that taste of success, that little bit of pride that I accomplished thing. But Steve, there are some that are hypersensitive to this. And it's like your classic sales guy who doesn't care what they sell. It's about the game. It's about the accomplishment of getting the sale. Those are the people that we want to talk about today.
So how do you identify these people? I realize that I just enjoy the creating the relationship, creating the sale, getting the thing done. And I don't even focus on the money. Yeah. I don't focus on anything. I just get this sense of accomplishment from making it over the goal line.
That's so funny you said that, because that ladders in perfectly to the definition of achievement. So psychologically, achievement is defined as the desire to feel successful, accomplished, and what you just said, Steve, closure by beating others. So it's funny that you said that, because for people that are hyper driven for success, some people think that they're going to be cutthroat, and that's not who you are. I know you're not cutthroat, and that it's not about domination and power necessarily. It's that moment of realizing that the deed is done, that there is closure. And that's a big part of the achievement motivation. it's just that there's an end point, and that end point, that crossing the line, is actually for many people why they do it. It's not the reward. It's not the money. It's the moment when you check something off that list that says done. And that gives you this sense of satisfaction. And so it doesn't have to be like when I say hyper success, it doesn't have to be that guy who will do anything to get the sale. No, it's that person that, like you, just feels that really that pride in knowing that they got that thing done. There's closure to it, and they beat whatever obstacle was in their way. They beat that obstacle.
There's something I was reading somewhere, and of course, you never remember where you read it, but as humans, we're really wired to aim at something, to overcome something, to make it through or get to a destination. And it's that sense of fulfillment of going through something where it was in doubt, but then you actually pulled it off. There's this, I don't know if it's endorphins, I don't know what it is, but your brain rewards you for making it through, even if it takes a long time.
Yep. No, perseverance is a large portion of achievement. If it's not difficult, you don't really get that sense of elevation. Deep down inside, whether you know it or not, your subconscious tells you, well, that was a little bit easy. And you don't get that same elevation, that same reward mechanism, those endorphins, like you say. So it's important that you have closure. But what I used to focus on a lot was you have to make sure that there is a barrier that you're having your customers overcome, which sounds counterintuitive, right? Because you want to make it as easy as possible. However, when it comes to achievement, or people are driven by success, the barrier is part of the fun. It can't be super hard that they can't accomplish it, but that's part of the fun, is getting over the barrier. So you have to do that as a business owner. Give little small barriers, or at least tell your customers that there is going to be a barrier. So you can't, if you're a coach out there, I think the worst thing you can do is say, we're going to handle everything for you. Take this one pill, everything's going to be fine, because nobody believes somebody who wants to be successful wants to overcome that barrier. So don't sit there and sugarcoat it. Tell them it's going to be hard work, and you'll get more excitement and more driven people to actually, go through your program.
Well, that's based on the assumption you want to work with these folks, because they're going to keep you on your game. It's going to require you to step up and compete with them.
That's right, because they're constantly measuring. People that are success driven are constantly measuring their progress with you. And if you're not helping them progress, or you're not making these goals reachable or attainable, they'll find somebody that is. So yeah, that's exactly right. There's some nuances to it, but when you help that person, your customer, your client, successfully reach that goal, Steve, they will remember you forever, and they will go back to you again and again. It's why these people go to Nike again and again and again. That's part of the reason why, because they associate that brand, that company, with their ability to succeed. So they'll keep going to you.
Yeah. And you know why that is because there's an emotional thing, this emotion that they go through, and that's why they remember it. That's why they associate their identity. So what are the 7 steps to psychologically connect with success-focused, but not just success-focused, hyper success-focused people?
Right. So the very first thing, guys, you got to think about is you have to help your customers set firm, distinct goals for themselves and help them compare themselves to others. So, I'm gonna kind of use the bracketology and March Madness and filling out your brackets, as kind of a thing that really people are really focused on success, and they just love the passion of like filling out that bracket and seeing their teams kind of make it through get to the final 4. Let's kind of put it in that domain, right? So helping them set firm, distinct goals so they can be compared against others. That's exactly what the first part of when you're filling out your bracket does, right? You're going through 64 teams, and you're trying to go through in your scenario planning, which out of those 64, which 4 teams are finally going to get to the final 4, and which 2 teams are going to get to the finals, and then finally that first. So it's really important that you help them, your customers, set those goals. Right? Because people who desire success want to know that they're going to reach a goal. And sometimes we don't always know what our goal is. So to help your clients set those goals for themselves. But then there are always winners and losers in achievement. Not everybody wins when you're in this mind state. And they know that. People who are driven by success know this. So they have to be able to compare themselves to rank themselves against other people so that they know where they compare. So not everybody gets a trophy when you're in this world. There are winners and losers. You need to distinguish between the two.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking about it, it's like, how do you do that with a customer? You don't want to run off, right? You want to have that potential failure or a way to measure them. How do you do that within that relationship?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I think there's a nice little balance there, Steve. I think that
Mhm.
you have to give the barrier, and sometimes when you can't overcome that barrier, if you're success driven, then yeah, I get a little bit pissed. But I think that somebody who's driven by that success, they need to know that you tried everything you could do to help them get over that barrier. But ultimately, if they're success driven, these people will see themselves as the reason why they didn't reach that goal. In almost all cases, as long as you're doing your job, you're going to be fine. So because they take that pride knowing that they're the ones who are driven, they have the perseverance. So just give them the tools that they require to help them maintain. If they fall down, they won't hold you accountable for that.
So I'm just thinking, so if you onboard them and you're working through a process, we could establish clear goals that would align them to help us make progress, make that account be more successful.
I agree. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We have to show that progress with levels and badges and things like that.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about it in a second. So, that second thing is people who are driven by success believe, and they probably have extraordinary abilities and skills. If they're driven by success, that great salesperson, that great employee, maybe a student out there that's driven to get straight A's, they want to apply their extraordinary abilities to reach their goals. So how can you help them apply? That is all about the programs you offer, the services you offer that take the best qualities that customer has and helps them apply those qualities. So I think about it in those brackets again, right? If you're filling out your final four, one of the coolest things about doing that is thinking that you are clairvoyant enough to figure out the upset, right? And that's what's happening today and tomorrow. It's always those people right now are going, the number 16 team is going to upset the number 1 team, which never happens, guys, by the way, like very rarely happens. But we all think that we have that clairvoyance, that we know under this conditions, that number 14 team is going to lose, or I'm sorry, it's going to win. So you have to actually allow people and create systems and programs that recognize they have a unique ability and then help them apply that unique ability. And that actually could be the hardest part of what we do, actually, Steve, because as business people, again, we try to solve our customers' problems. When people are hyper-focused on success, you have to enable them to beat to overcome their barriers, to make progress on their goals. So you have to create systems that enable them as opposed to doing the work for them.
Excellent. So you're watching or you're listening to an excellent conversation with one of my favorite authors, Will Leach. He's author of Marketing to Mindstates. And today's episode is how to grow your sales with hyper success focused customers. So what's number 3, Will? So we're covering the 7 steps to psychologically connect with success focused people. And number 3?
That's right. So first, you help them set firm, distinct goals. And then secondly, you're going to help enable them with their unique capabilities. The third thing is, as they're going through your program, your service, whatever it is that you're offering, help them or help increase leveling and subsequent rewards while using your brand, while interacting with you. So somebody that desires success needs to know that they're making progress. It's a psychological desire that we have. So what do? As they're engaging with you, make sure that you are increasing the numbers of times that you allow them to level up. So if you're in the gaming industry, right, or if your kids game, you know how important it is. At least my son comes down once every couple of days and says, I reached a B- on Splatoon, or I reached level 5 on this. Why does he tell me that? Because that is a significant achievement in his life. He wants to come down and tell me that. So what I'm telling you to do is, rather than just saying you have a starting point and an end point with my program, no, not with a success-driven person. You want to have starting point, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, end point. And I don't know how many levels you want to give them, but realize that every time they level up, you give them that endorphin. You give them that little bit of pride because they were able to achieve something. So increase those numbers of levels. And even if it's something that's a minor level up, that feeling of getting to that next level will inspire them to maintain the relationship with you.
Excellent. That makes so much sense to me. I'm just thinking about how we could tweak our services a little bit to offer that leveling up, at
Mhm.
least to obviously call it out. We have it built in, but we just don't name it,
That's
right?
right. That's right. And that's where that fourth step that I came up with. It's not just enough to increase the levels. You have to name it, right? So that people are aware of what level they're at and that
Mhm.
there's an important milestone that has been met. So it's not just saying you got to the next level. No, your level is a level better than the level you're on. This is why we do the classic, you're a bronze package, silver package, gold package, platinum package. Why do you do that? Because you know that every level is slightly harder to get to and there's more prestige and difficulty to actually get to it, right? So making sure that that milestone is people are aware of that milestone and that milestone reflects a better level. And you can do that with so many different words. I mean, even if you go level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that works fine because you know 2 is bigger than 1 and 3 is bigger than 2. Or if it's bronze, silver, gold, anything like that, it's all fine. But you just want to increase that kind of esteem, I guess, if you want to think about it, that feeling of pride, and that comes with showing that next level is better than the one before.
Wow, so that makes sense because we take so many courses, we go through classes in university or whatever, and when you're leveling up,
Yeah.
I mean, it's naturally built in, but they're not saying, look, we're showing you're leveling up. You're just experiencing it.
Yeah, you graduated. The milestone is you graduated to the next thing. And think about it in the final four brackets, right? As you're looking at the final four, every couple of days, you're seeing yourself move up. And you know that you're getting these points, and you know that the points every time you get through, whether it's from 64 to 32, 32 to 16, you know where you stand. And it's really important when your teams finally get bonked out, like mine will probably by end of next week. I don't usually do really well in the brackets. I know that I didn't make it, but all those people that get to the final four, every couple of days, they realize that they went to the next level. They went from the 16, or I'm sorry, they went from, the 64 to the 32 to the Sweet 16 to the Elite 8. So those moments, like the very fact that they're calling them Elite 8, that is a leveling up. It's telling those people that are still in that bracket that they're better than all the schmoes like me who got knocked out in 32, right?
All right. So this is excellent. The 7 steps to psychologically connect with success-focused people, hyperly success-focused. So what's number 4, Will?
Yes. So this is like the 10. You want to make sure that they're aware that they've reached these important milestones, right? The graduation. It's number 5, which is overcoming an otherwise difficult obstacle. Thank you, Steve. I can't come up with another idea on number 4.
Well, what's 4B?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you want to make sure. I love the obstacles. I think are important for an achiever. In fact, so much so that a year ago, when I was studying achievement motivation, I was really focused on obstacles because I know that it's important for people to overcome obstacles. And so, therefore, you need to make sure that your customers feel somewhere in your in the relationship with you that an obstacle was met and was overcome because you enabled that. Now, you didn't solve it for them. We've talked about this before. You can't solve the problem for somebody who's driven by success. You can enable them so that they can solve it for themselves. So how do you show them a potential obstacle is coming up so they can prepare? And then how do you enable them? How do you do something that helps them get over that obstacle? And sometimes, what customers do, or what companies do this, the way they do this is that they give time limits to their program. So I have a class, I teach at Texas A&M, and it is a 10-week course. So the obstacle is you have to get through each week a certain number of required assignments. You have to read portions of my book. You have to do some activities to get to the next week, to get to the next week, to get to the next week. Those are obstacles. Now, I enable that by having office hours to coach my students that are taking the course. I also provide reading materials. I give them plenty of time, but I tell them, and it's very clear, we give grades, and every week I give grades, and sometimes people don't reach the milestone. There's an obstacle. Life got hard or whatever. I say, you know what? I'm going to help you. Let's get on a phone call. Let's talk about your business a little bit so they can overcome that barrier. So barriers exist. I'm not suggesting you necessarily put the barrier in there, but give people a time limit. Give people something so that they know that, yes, it's going to take a little extra effort to get to the next level. And if you do that, they're going to feel more successful. You're not just spoon feeding them.
Makes sense. And you see it happen all the time. It's not obvious, but everything in there is to help us feel connected and progressing toward our goals.
Yep. That's right.
So in our 7 steps, I'm going to get this one right. Number 6
this is the hardest one, I think, for many people to do. And it's hard for me too, guys. You have to provide closure. So achievers, people who are success driven, need to have closure, or they're constantly running the marathon. And nobody wants to constantly run the marathon. They want to cross the finish line, because when they break through the finish line, they're able to reach their hands in victory and say, I did it. That's when they get the most endorphins. So you have to have closure. So I know a lot of times that we try as coaches out there or as consultants that we're maintaining projects. We're always adding on something. We're always trying to maintain this thing. Realize that there has to be closure. Now, that doesn't mean that after closure, you can't work with me, but there has to be a moment where something is delivered and you can wipe your hands of it and say, that project's done. Now, would you like to go to the next level? Now, would you like to, work on something again? But you can't, somebody who desires success needs to know that they actually accomplished something. They have to get the trophy. They have to run through the finish line. So provide closure. And so imagine, again, there's closure in basketball, right? There is a game. The bracket ends when the last 2 teams standing play, and then there's a national champion. That is closure. That's when anyone who's playing the brackets, that winner gets the highest elevation, right? Yeah, and then it's over. They don't keep going, okay, for next year, now let's fill out your brackets and let's talk about next year's game. It's over. That's what you got to think about too. That, even though it feels probably a little bit foreign for many people, because you want to put people on a payment plan and you want to put people onto some sort of a loyalty program or whatever. But for an achiever, they need to know something ended and that they actually reached that goal. So recognize that by closing things off.
I was thinking about, watched a little bit of the Super Bowl. And so Tom Brady's like, I don't know, this is like 15 times he's won the Super Bowl. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's like, how many times do you win the Super Bowl? But it's kind of like, nah, that closure thing's been closed so many times. Mm-hmm. What's after the Super Bowl?
I know, he's got to figure out a way. Oh, a lot of athletes do this. They find the chip. It's not winning the actual Super Bowl. There's closure. It is they have to find that momentum from the chip on the shoulder, right? Yeah, but nobody thought I could go to Tampa Bay and win with that. And nobody would think that I could actually win it twice. They got to find that next goal. And now I'll be a quarterback who has won it with 2 different teams, right? And now it's like, well, but I'll be the only quarterback that has won it with 3 teams. So they're always trying to find that next goal. That's what gets them up that's what gets them up in the morning, right? I'm sure.
That's interesting. So I wonder how many times you can watch the Super Bowl and like Tom Brady's playing, you go, I think I'll skip this year. He's just going to win again.
No, I bet there's some of that stuff out there. I'm sure there is. There's a little bit of fatigue out there, no doubt, because we're not driven by success, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
All right. So everyone's been anxiously waiting for number 7, Will.
That's right. This is the one that is the trick. This is something I try to teach my students. We talked a little bit about it here in the past, but an achiever deep down inside believes that they're going to achieve with or without you. That is just inherently important to understand about these customers. So you cannot overstep your bounds. And I can't say this enough. Overstepping, saying that it was because of you that somebody reached their goals. If they're driven like this, you're going to be seen as kind of, we talked about the hero of the story. When there's only one hero in this story, it's them. They believe they're going to be successful with or without you. Now they want you to enable that success, but you can't take credit for the success. So you need to be seen as a critical tool, but you were a critical tool that was used for success, but nothing more. So we've talked about this back a couple of months ago, I'm sure. When I talk about they are Batman, you are the utility belt. Batman needs that utility belt. But frankly, Batman, or the utility belt, is an important part of Batman's arsenal. But ultimately, Batman will find a way to win. That's how these people feel. And I always bring up this case study. And it really hit me hard years ago when I did some research for a hotel chain. And this hotel chain at the time had advertising, huge hotel chain. And they had national advertising where they were trying to bring in more business professionals into the hotel. And so they wanted to be recognized as, hey, together, we're going to help you win this deal. And so you probably remember this is years ago, but you see this professional, and all of a sudden the girl from behind the counter at the hotel, she comes around, she kind of straightens up the guy's tie, and she straightens up, and it feels good, right? Mm-hmm. But yet they were not engaging with business professionals. This hotel just could not bring business professionals in. They weren't growing. So we did some research, and we found out that these people were driven by achievement motivations. They're like, hey, I'm here to win the deal. And under that mind state that we talk about in my book, Optimistic Achievement Mind State, there's a point where we found out that showing that together, and they even use these words, let us win the deal. Psychologically, that's not optimized because these people don't think that you can help them win the deal, but you're not a big portion of that. You're not a big part of that. So we just did some very basic recommendations on our advertising to not show and certainly not talk about together. Our partnership is going to help you win more deals because somebody who's driven by success doesn't really believe that the girl from behind the counter or the gentleman who's kind of behind the counter at the hotel, at the registration desk, is really going to help that person win this deal. So don't ever step your bounds. You are the utility belt. They are the Batman. Very critical partnership, but you're not at level. You're not at the same level. They're the successful hero. You're the enabler. And it's small, and it probably sounds slightly like, oh, I don't know how big a deal it is. It actually is a really big deal. Psychologically, there will never be that engagement if you're trying to be on par with your customers, if they're driven by success.
You think about the Batman and utility belt example. He was smart enough to design the utility belt to carry it around with him. So if you can position it where you can confirm that they were smart enough to pick you to help them overcome that obstacle.
I love what you said. You were. And so you see where I put in capital letters there, the brand was, that's past tense. So it's a psychological trick. When people are driven by success, when you talk to them, you want to talk to them thinking about the past, because in the past, you enabled this, or in the past, customer, you made the right choice. You are more likely to become successful in the future. So people who are driven by success oftentimes equate success with something they did in the past. So talk in the past tense. It's a small little nuance you can do with your messaging, but in doing that, it fits more realistically with how they see the world. It was their past decisions. It was your past efforts that helped them succeed then. Therefore, you will help them succeed today. So that was actually a really nice point that you made, Steve, because you want to talk past tense as it relates to your ability to help them today. Talk about how you helped them in the past, and it's going to feel more natural.
Wow. I mean, we didn't even plan that. I was just thinking while you were talking.
Yeah, no,
right.
I forgot about it too. I'm like, there's a reason why I put WA or capitalized WAS. So it's past tense. You're successful, man. You're success driven, Steve. You probably don't know about it. Maybe that's what you are. I don't know.
I am, and I realize that, but it's like sometimes, Steve, you need to focus a little bit more on this. But it's like, I don't care. I just get that feeling of accomplishment or fulfillment from solving a problem that's been plaguing me for a while.
Yeah, I was just talking to a guy yesterday that said the exact same thing. It's the challenges and the solving, that closure after you've solved even the smallest of problems, because that's what I live for. Every day I try to find like 3 to 4 problems in my business, and that's what gets me pumped up. It's not the sale. It's how do we get to the point where I enabled an operational thing to work correctly. I was like, that's so interesting. He's an entrepreneur, but he was like, I don't get jazzed by the money. I get jazzed by the problem solving. Isn't that crazy? I'm not that way. I'm slightly different, but it's good to recognize. So imagine if you understood that about yourself and you were like losing, we all lose. There's seasons in any business in every year. And sometimes you just don't want to work hard, or you're feeling a little bit down. What if, you enabled in your day that you would overcome a few obstacles? And what if you, start thinking about your business as an entrepreneur of setting these leveling ups throughout the day or throughout the week that would engage you. That would give you that pride and that emotional engagement to keep working hard in your company when sometimes you just don't feel like it. You go through seasons of 2 or 3 weeks where you're just down and it's hard to get up and you're distracted by social media. What if you create an environment where you are constantly you're constantly achieving, you're constantly solving problems? It would get you up faster in the morning. You'd be more excited to work. That's what McClellan did back in the 50s with his work around achievement. He was focused on employees, and what his work was doing was working on employees and how do you get employees to be motivated at work. Now he looked at it through the lens of giving them successful levels. And if you help he looked at the world slightly different than I do, but at the end of the day, it was through employee engagement. And if you can get your employees to create an environment like this for them where they can feel like they're successful, they'll stay with you forever. They'll work hard every day. They'll come up pumped working for you because you've enabled them to kind of feel this great pride that they have in themselves, and they take that home to their families,
Wow, that's what I'm telling you. If there was ever a year I didn't feel successful, it's been this past year where all of a sudden what worked had been shut down, turned off. And we had to, like, after we finished spending a little time crying in the shower, maybe me, then it's like got back up and started to figure out what can we work on? What can we control in this situation where we don't feel in control?
Mm-hmm. And Steve, it's an important point that we don't talk about enough, which is we talk about these motivations as these are inherent inside of you. So let's talk about how do you engage people who need more belonging, or how do we talk to people who desire more success? But inherent in that is that you can create communications, environments, marketing. You can actually prime these. So for instance, if you're driven by success, and last year was really hard for a lot of people to be successful, there are some that kept going no matter what. There are others that gave up, and there are others, and this is the ones I want to talk about, those others that said, even though it's hard, I want to create a system. I want to change my communications, change my programs so that I can get myself motivated every day and I can help my employees. We can control these things. Like that's what marketing does, but we can control these in our own places of work. So my point, and I think it's important to know that everything we're talking about, and we always look at the lens of marketing, this is human behavior. You can take these exact same principles, bring them into your household, bring them to your business, and they can motivate you to go reach whatever goals you have. So it's something that's important. These aren't always just us helping our customers. These help us emotionally as well, run better businesses and become better fathers and better husbands and better wives and just better servants out in our community.
It's so true. You think about the movies where the heroes, like, they kind of have a status quo and they're successful, and then they run into a situation where they get decimated. And then it goes into the part of the movie where they're like retooling. They're having to come back from this big defeat, and they're like making their tools better or having to work out. That's going on in your client's mind when they're approaching you. There's something they're wanting to overcome, and you're helping them retool and show up for the final show, right?
It reminds me of I believe it's Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Right? Rocky 3. Rocky Balboa isn't quite, and he thinks he's the champion, but then Clubber Lang just beats the tar out of him. He's down. Who gets him? Apollo Creed. He's the guy who comes up, gets him back into training, gets his motivation. Then Rocky beats up on Clubber Lang. You just told that story, and that story is universal to everybody. It's not just movie properties, guys. It is in life, in business. What you just said is so true. And for that person, like Rocky is that thing that inspires all these athletes to run really hard. And we hear that music, Eye of the Tiger, all that kind of stuff. And there's a reason why that feels good. There's a reason why those movies work. It's because it is in our nature. That story is embedded in our subconscious. And when you can tap into that, you can get yourself and your clients to take actions that otherwise they wouldn't have done. So love what you said. It's Rocky 3. It's our Rocky 3 analogy because it's dead on.
Oh, this has been an excellent conversation, and it's so you're connecting so many dots and making the people that you serve the hero in their story by being the Apollo Creed, by being the utility belt, by being the one that's helping them because they came to you because they didn't feel secure in the approach to the challenge they're about to take.
That's right.
And so they're looking for who's their little sidekick.
Yep. And remember a part of that Rocky 3, right? Rocky, if you remember that movie, he didn't want to go fight. I mean, he kind of did, but I can't do it. What did Apollo Creed do? He built up his confidence first. Then he did the training. Then he enabled it. So sometimes your customers come to you with the motivation, I want to get to the next level. Other times your customers are just confused and they don't know what they want. That's why your job is to help them set that vision, set that goal for them, help them set that goal, then help inspire them, give them the ability to level up, get them to where now you can overcome a barrier. You're the utility belt. There's closure. And then you help them reach that final successful goal. If you can do all that, it's not nearly as difficult as it sounds like. Just you're Apollo Creed. Build that confidence internally with your customer. They'll never forget you. I mean, remember, and this is we're done with the Rocky things. Remember Rocky 4, when Apollo Creed got killed by the Russian Ivan Drago.
Yeah.
Rocky went to Russia, trained with a bunch of rocks to beat up on the Russian, right?
And a log.
He had a log on his shoulders. Who does that? He didn't go with the steroids, Steve. Why? Because he loved Apollo because of what Apollo did for him in the Rocky 3, right? If you can imagine your customers going to bat for you and like that. Well, I know it's a far stretch, but there is some behavioral science truth in that. There just is.
That's so cool. So what's new? Well, what's going on at Mindstate? What's up?
We are in week 3 of our launch of our brand new programs. We have 3 different Mindstate marketing programs that are helping small businesses to engage with their employees, engage with their customers, create experiences that have been psychologically optimized to compel their customers to listen, care, and act. So we have part 1 is called a starter package. That's a way of just entering into Mindstate marketing, learning about the processes on your own. And just kind of getting into the water, learning about these concepts and applying them to your business. The second one is what we call the masterclass. That's my favorite one, where you get access to about 8 hours worth of videos, a bunch of micro learning sessions, but we train you step by step how to activate on these non-conscious mind states and integrate these things into your communications. And lastly, we have a partnership program. The partnership program is another level up, but what that does is allows you to get the masterclass, all those videos, all the micro learning training sessions, all the downloads, but then you work with me and my team over the course of a year to actually apply these concepts into your business. So each way is a different mechanism to get involved with kind of bringing behavioral psychology to your business. Ultimately, we're just trying to get you to grow your sales using science and just kind of be more human while you're doing it.
How to use science to connect with your clients. You can learn all of this at mindstategroup.com. You can reach out to Will Leach. He's all over LinkedIn, everywhere. You just Google Will Leach. You're going to find him on videos. You're going to find him on magazine articles, everywhere. What's up, Will? How do you have all the time to do this?
I'm a great time manager, I guess, and I don't watch golf. I guess maybe that's the other part of it. But hey, when you're really passionate about what you do, Steve, you find the time, and that's right. What it comes down to it. I'm passionate about small businesses. I'm passionate about making human connections, and that's why we do this every week.
So fun. I got a lot out of this. I'm telling you, I'm the luckiest guy and learned so much, but it's so true. We feel these things, and then you're helping us actually put them into good words, but also verify that science, it's not just a feeling, but these are actual things that help us with behavioral design. Will Leach, any last words before we wrap up and get prepared for next week?
Hey, good luck on your brackets, everybody. Like if you're like me, next week we're going to be out of the pools. We're out of all those office pools or whatever. Good luck. Go Gators. Go SMU. That's all I'm going to say. We'll see how far we get this year. Not very far is my guess.
Well, excellent. So great episode on how to grow your sales with hyper success focused clients on the Mindstate Marketing Hour with Will Leach. I'm your co-host, Steve Brown, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, Will.
Bye now.
And that's a wrap.